Brewing Network.
All right, welcome to the Firestone Walker Brewing Network Tap Hunter. Get any other sponsors in there? Behind the Beer stage. Welcome to the Coors Light stage, everybody. Thanks for coming and sitting with us.
I think it's Busch Light, actually.
Yes, the Busch Light stage. All right, sitting with me right now, and you can come on over and try his beer. We've got some pictures that we'll go ahead and start passing around. Mr. Julian Shrago from Beechwood
Hello,
Brewing
everyone.
and
How are you?
Barbecue. What's this first beer that we have, Julian? Let's just tell everybody.
So we've got two beers that are pretty much the same color. It's hard to distinguish, but you can by the aroma and taste. I believe the one in the gentleman's right hand is our Thrill Seeker IPA.
Okay.
Very hop-forward West Coast IPA. And then in his left hand is Hop Ninja Double IPA. Kapow! Look out.
Is that on the label?
That's in the beer menu. So normally we have these editorialized beer descriptions on our beer menu at the pub, but that one is simply Hop Ninja. Description, kapow!
That's a good description.
Huge font exclamation point.
Right.
So-
How long has Beechwood Brewing been around?
Beachwood BBQ and Brewing opened their doors last year in July 7th. So we're coming up on our first year anniversary, and we've had a really good time. It's been one hell of a ride, but it's been great, and our patrons are fantastic.
You're getting a lot of rave reviews, and now I've known Julian for a couple years. You were a home brewer before becoming a professional brewer.
True, and I still feel like a home brewer in many respects.
How big is your brew system?
It is a 10-barrel system. At least that's the advertised capacity, but we typically brew 11-barrel batches on it, and we can, if we really monitor the boil closely, crank out 12 barrels per batch.
So that could kind of feel like a homebrew setup. You're just doing a big batch.
It does. It feels like that in a lot of ways. Just everybody's watching, so don't mess it up.
Right. If you're thinking of going into the beer industry, I think Julian's a good example. We can pick his brain a little bit because he started as a home brewer, brewing wonderful beer, and then several years later you get involved with Beechwood here. But you've been brewing for almost a year for Beechwood, but you've only just recently quit your day job.
That's true. I was doing double duty for quite a while, and I had the good fortune of partnering up with Gabe and Lena Gordon, who are the owners of the original Beachwood BBQ in Seal Beach. And about the time that I was getting ready to open a production brewery, they wanted to expand the Beachwood BBQ restaurant enterprise, and we decided to kind of join forces as business partners. And we did Beachwood BBQ and Brewing in Long Beach. But, you make sacrifices for your business, and one of the things that I did for the last year was carry my other day job, which was as an aerospace engineer. Wow. So transfers and cleanings and preparatory tasks would take place on weeknights, and then weekends I would do brewing, and I was probably between the two jobs working 100 to 110 hours a week. For over a year.
It's a lot of work. Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
Making the skies safe, working 110 hours a week.
There you
Good
go.
job, Julian.
There
You don't look like an engineer. You'd scare me for flying.
Well, sexiness is deceiving, I will agree.
Right.
Well, that's what my mother says, but anyway.
Sure, smart lady.
Whoa.
Now, you're a hop guy.
Yeah.
A lot of your beers are very hop forward.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I was talking to the writer for the LA Weekly. Daniel is his name.
Great guy, yeah.
And he says every time he goes into your place, there's another IPA on tap.
That was actually, it's interesting how that happened. We did have the good fortune of securing enough Simcoe and Amarillo to brew one of our favorite IPAs a couple times a year, and that's a beer called Melrose IPA. We had originally intended for that beer to be year-round, but we weren't able to get enough Amarillo our first year of opening, so we can only brew it, every couple months. But I like to experiment with hops, and I like to brew different IPAs to showcase different hops. And so I thought, you know what, we will just regularly do different IPAs. And I think since we've opened, we've done close to 8 different IPAs, and some of them are fairly regular, like Thrill Seeker IPA that you're drinking comes around probably once every 6 to 8 weeks.
And what kind of hops are in this beer?
That beer is primarily driven by Simcoe and Chinook. There are a few others mixed in there, like Summit and Centennial, but Simcoe and Chinook are the primary drivers in that beer.
Now, this beer, we were just talking about Simcoe with Pat from Alpine before you came up here, and we didn't have his beer in front of us, so I'm glad we have yours with the Simcoe in it. This is an example of a non-catty Simcoe beer. You've done well with the use of the hop. And is that a challenge for you?
It's not for me. I think I kind of understand the catty thing that people are talking about, but I've never owned a cat. I'm a dog guy. I have a bulldog, Nigel. Yeah, he's a great little guy. But so I don't really know the whole cat pee thing that people are talking about. But
this one's bulldoggy. It would explain that.
It's much more bulldoggy. Nigel would approve. But I do like to blend hops and create lots of layers of flavors and aromas. So I've done all Simcoe beers before in the past, but I feel you get more depth if you layer things. And so that's why we blend in the Simcoe with the Chinook.
I think a strong point about this beer and your use of hops is that it's not, even though it's a hoppy IPA, it's not very bitter at all.
Thank you.
Is it tell us how you achieve that?
It is that way by design, and Thrill Seeker is constructed the same way that I construct most of my IPAs, and the use of crystal malt is fairly restrained. And I really like the hops to shine front and center. Some people look for IPAs that are balanced. I prefer IPAs that are unbalanced in that they don't have a lot of crystal malt character.
Which is what, like a sweetness behind it?
It would be a sweetness and kind of a light caramelly note. I mean, that has a little bit mixed in there, but with the IPAs that I brew, I try and create lots of layers of hop flavor and hop aroma without a crushing bitterness. We also do, in addition, at the very beginning of the brewing process called first wort hopping, and that is as we're filling the kettle, we add a little dose of, I prefer sometimes a coarser hop like Chinook, and that will give a sustained lingering bitterness once the finish is over.
Yeah.
So.
I was going to point that out about this beer also, that in the front, in the nose of the beer, you don't get the bitterness, but after you put the glass down, the bitterness does kind of come up in the end of your taste.
It does. It sits with you for a little while, but it's not kind of this crushing thing that's just hops for the sake of hops.
And that's a result of the first wort hopping, you think?
It's a result of the first wort hopping. I think it's also a result of how we do our bittering charges, and I tend to favor more neutral hops for bittering charges, something like Magnum, Warrior, Summit.
And for those who, if you're not familiar with the brewing process, that would be like your 60-minute hop. It'd be in the boil the whole time.
It would be 60 minutes or 90 minutes, depending on the beer.
Okay.
Yeah. And so Pat, just a few minutes ago, was talking about looking at the analysis sheet of hops, and that's something that I do as well. Hops are comprised of many, many different aromatic and flavor components, and every hop has different levels of those flavor and bittering components. Some are smooth bitterness, some are coarse bitterness, some are more perfumey, some are more citrusy. But you can look at a hop on an analysis sheet and get a fairly decent idea of how that's going to play out in a beer. Okay. So that's another way that we go about selecting hops is the, I guess I would call it the aromatic versus bittering potential.
All right, if anybody has any questions for Julian, there's a microphone right up here. Feel free to come up. We give away some free swag if you got questions, too. We got some Firestone hats and shirts, so think of something weird to ask Julian. I don't care what it is. Doesn't even have to be about the beer, you know. I don't care.
Yeah, if anyone wants to know what kind of underwear I'm wearing,
nobody cares.
Yeah, no. Your mother does.
Oh! That was our first mom joke of the day, everybody. Congratulations to Julian. Yeah. Tell us about the other beer that you have here, too.
The other beer that we have here is called Hop Ninja, and this is one of our... Kapow! I heard it over there. Nice. Thank you, guys. This is one of our double IPAs that we brew kind of quarterly, and it's a ton of fun to make. We get to throw a lot of hops in there, and it's kind of silly to see all the hops fall in the boil kettle. And we do a massive, massive dry hop charge in the fermenter. But to go one step further... we take a giant nylon sack that's 3 feet long, and we fill it full of hop flowers and stuff that in the serving tank at the pub. And so we have 10-barrel serving tanks, which are kind of like 310-gallon kegs, and we fill the beer into the serving tank on these flowers. So this giant sack is in there the whole time. You get a pint, it comes right off the dry hops.
I'm going to be honest. It sounds like that might not be very good. That's a lot of hops in there.
So?
Who gives a shit?
That's
Is
a lot.
it good?
It's a lot of. Well, hey, I'll let you be the judge.
All
man.
right.
I've done it more than once, so
You have, okay.
that should tell you something.
And what kind of hops are in there? The sack, I mean.
The sack is all Amarillo flowers and a little bit of Columbus pellets thrown in there too.
All right, maybe it is good. That sounds good.
I'll let you decide.
All right, question right here.
Yeah, how many times do you use the wooden barrels in your beer fermentation, the double barrel? Just one batch, or they use more than one, so you got to mix it up?
Wrong brewer.
You're not Firestone.
No.
Well, then never mind.
Excellent question for the
I
wrong
can
brewer.
lie to you if you give me $1.
Make it up, Julian. We use it 100
Once
times.
we have one barrel in our barrel program at Beechwood.
You
know,
do.
We're a tiny little pub, but we did fill a bourbon barrel with our Scotch ale called Full Malted Jacket, and we're gonna wait and see how that turns out in about another 6 months, I think.
So you won't be serving it here today.
Unfortunately, no.
Boo.
It's still waiting in the barrel.
Another question?
Any hints on what's coming up? What are you brewing next?
Well, as a brew pub, we have the ability to brew whatever we want, whenever we want. And coming up, probably soonest, I think next week we're going to be tapping a new milk stout called Utter Love. Yeah, that's one right there. And then we have we're going to be bringing back another batch of our IPA called the Dominator, which is primarily old school hops. It's like Galena, Centennial, Columbus, and then you see what else do we have? We got a lot of we got some Belgian beers coming up, but yeah, Utter Love is probably the next one that'll be coming up next week.
Who names all your beers?
It's a collaborative effort. Whenever inspiration strikes, we put it through committee, but it could be me, it could be Gabe, it could be his wife Lena, and sometimes it comes from other places. But I remember one night Gabe, my business partner, called me up and he said, "I have a great name for a beer, Hoppa Smurf." I said, "That's awesome, but we don't have a beer for that yet." But we thought about it, and then Smurfs are Belgian, so we decided to brew a Belgian IPA.
Perfect.
So
It's a small problem to have. Names are hard to come by. Beer, that's easy. You can make that
there you
anytime.
go. There you go.
Another question?
Yeah, I've been wondering about this for a while. Do you wax your dome?
I might. You want to touch it?
That's a good question. I told you, you can ask anything you want. He's going to test and see if the dome is waxed.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Waxed?
Coppertone Sport, baby.
Right.
Thank you. That's not the only one.
Julian, how do you go about making your Belgian IPA? You use an IPA malt or Belgian malt?
Actually,
Obviously hops.
yeah, that's a great question. How do I go about making my Belgian IPAs? My IPAs, my Belgian IPAs are actually kind of a European analog of my American IPAs. So in place of using, say, American two-row malt for the base, I would use a German or a Belgian Pilsner malt. Instead of using a light crystal caramel malt, I might use something like a Belgian Caravienne. And then the hopping scheme is the same. The IBU levels are fairly similar, but instead of using an American hop, I would substitute a European hop.
And then, of course, you're using a Belgian yeast. Which kind of strain would you be using?
Of course. The Belgian strain that we use most frequently is from the Westmalle Trappist. Yeah,
Cool.
it's a good one.
If we were a home brewer, could you suggest us a?
Yeah, that would be White Labs Fight 30 or the Y-East 3787.
Nice.
Yeah.
On the fly,
Look
Julian.
out!
Good job. Any
Numbers
other
are
questions?
dangerous.
Did you get enough of his beer? Because if you didn't, it's at the booth over there. You got to leave and go get
Beachwood
it there.
booth, number 9. Please come by. Number 9.
All right.
It's the Elliot Spitzer booth.
Julian Shrago, everybody. Wait, one more question? Yeah, we'll do it.
Julian, you're obviously a very accomplished home brewer before going pro. How many of your recipes as a home brewer made it on a professional level?
How many of my beers, homebrew recipes, made it as commercial beers before I went pro? I had the honor of brewing at the Pizza Port locations in San Diego and in Orange County a couple times before I went pro, as well as Tustin Brewing in Tustin, California, and then Triple Rock Brewery in Berkeley. And probably the homebrew that I did that probably got around the most would be Panzer Pilsner, which is a seasonal beer. It's an Imperial Pilsner that's done by Port Brewing in San Marcos. And that was actually, these were all great experiences to take my recipes, and we simply scaled them up linearly and to see how they would translate. And they all translated just fine. So a lot of people ask that question, how do you translate recipes to larger scale? For me, it's worked out just to scale everything up on a linear scale.
Great. One more question.
Hey, Mike Carr from Fresno, home brewer.
Yeah.
Hey, I have a chill plate, and every time I send my, wort from the boiler through my chill plate, it plugs up.
Which chill plate do you have?
Terminator from Blickman.
Okay, I used one of those for many years at home. One of the things that I made sure of was to get a good kettle break when I did a whirlpool in my kettle, and I have at least my homebrew system has a hop dam in it, so it has a plate that kind of diverts any hop matter before it goes out the kettle.
I also have the hop blocker, but I still get plugged up 2 or 3 times. So I try to pump it through the chill plate.
Oh, are you just using gravity to go through?
Yes.
You got to pump it. You got to pump it good. But I never tried the gravity feed on the Terminator. I don't know how well that would work, but as long as you're getting good kettle break. Well, okay, I will take your word for it. But with the pump, I never had any blockage flow issues whatsoever.
But a good whirlpool, you got to pump. He's right. But a good whirlpool, and you're not just whirlpooling it, right? You got to let it settle. Like a lot of us do the whirlpool, and we start pumping while it's moving.
A half hour. Well, I do the whirlpool.
Yeah.
Wait a half hour.
There you
send
go.
it through. With the pump, I got 1 blockage, and then I was okay. But without the pump, I was getting 3, 4, 5 blockage.
I would, what kettle funnings are you using?
The Warlord.
Whirlflock?
Yeah.
That works great. You should be getting good kettle break. If you get a good whirlpool, you could probably let it rest for 15 minutes, and then you can start pumping out to your fermenter. You should be okay.
He's saying it's user error.
Pretty much.
It's the assistance.
Right. All right. Anything else for Julian? All right. Julian Shrago from Beechwood. Thanks, man.
Thank you so much for having me up here. I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for coming out today. Cheers.
All right, you can go to craftbeercrawl.com right now and vote for your favorite beer. It's the People's Choice Award. It also enters you into the grand prize. We're giving away 2 tickets to next year's festival, a hotel room, $100, a fire pit, and I think there's a bunch of other shit in there too. So it's a really good grand prize. Go to craftbeercrawl.com right now. Also, if you're hungry, the Lions Club's right over here serving tri-tip and bratwurst and all kinds of good food. Coming up next, we're talking to Tony Lawrence from Boneyard Brewing Company. Hang out just a couple of minutes, and we'll try to get his beer over here too.
The Brewing Network.